The first step, it's not finance, it's not searching for properties, it's getting clear on your goals and vision. We talk life first and then property. Because if you don't know what you're aiming for, how can you make decisions that align to your long-term vision? Hello, and welcome to First Home Unlocked, the podcast for unlocking clarity and confidence for first home buyers. I'm Jack Elliott, National First Home Buyer Specialist at Alcove.
And I'm Chris Bates, ex-financial planner and mortgage broker.
Together, we are on a mission to empower you with the keys to unlock your first home. Let's jump in. Hello, welcome to First Home Unlocked. We're so excited to have you here for our very first episode. How are you today, Chris?
Oh, things are good, Jack. Not too much to report on here. Got Ellie and Tommy. We're heading up to the Gold Coast this week, so that's super exciting.
I'm sure Ellie and Tommy are really excited. Amy and I, we're just heading back to Echuca on the weekend to spend some time with some family, which we're excited about. And yeah, I'm just feeling really pumped, Chris, to be here filming episode 1 with you. I'm really looking forward to it.
Super excited to do this episode, Jack. What are we covering today?
So over the next 8 episodes, we're going to be taking you through the whole home buying journey. So step by step. And the first step, it's not finance, it's not searching for properties, it's getting clear on your goals and vision. We'll talk life first and then property. Because if you don't know what you're aiming for, how can you make decisions that align to your long-term vision? So that's the real first step in buying a home, is getting clear on and defining what success looks like for you. Your property should support your lifestyle, not take away from it. Before you start talking about loans and locations, start by asking yourself, where do I want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? What kind of life am I trying to build here? And how does my property support my goals around family, work, and my lifestyle? Chris, we always start our conversations here. So why do you think it's such a powerful place to begin?
Look, I came into mortgage broking from financial advice, and we've been working together for the last 12 months, Jack, and you've been doing a lot of work with our first home buyers. And now this is something that we do a little bit different. I think they're all the right conversations as first home buyers first, is to just really discuss where your life's going and where you want your life to sort of head, in which direction. And it really matters, where did you grow up? Where do you want to live in 5 years? Have you got a partner? Are you thinking about having kids? There's so many questions, and everyone's living different lives. And I think if you skip this step and you just basically go out and buy something based on what you currently need now, it might not suit you in a few years' time, or you might have missed the opportunity of buying a different type of asset that might have some additional benefits. So if you don't really get clear on where you're heading, you often could just go and buy any property, and that might not get you the outcome you want.
Yeah, look, I totally agree, Chris. We work with a whole range of first home buyers, solo buyers, couples, young families, people's in their 20s, 30s, 40s. Everyone's journey is different. But no matter where you're starting from, it's worth asking, what am I building here? And how can a property support that vision? So let's walk through the areas we explore in our goals and values conversation. And as I mentioned before, the first thing you should be asking yourself is, what does life look like in the next 5 to 10 years? Chris, when we ask first home buyer clients this question, what kind of response are you getting?
I think that question, 5 to 10 years, I think first when you ask that question, a lot of people just sort of take a step back. And why you ask you all these big questions, I just want to sort of go out and buy a home, or I just want to go and buy an apartment because I'm sick of renting, etc. But all we're looking to do, and I think what we're trying to do, is help you think through, well, where are you ultimately going to end up one day? And do you need to plan around that? Or is that really clear, or is it really hazy for you? Sometimes when you're single, your life plan can change pretty quick. You might meet somebody and move to a different city or country. I know there's challenges when you're sort of a bit young. You might be in an established relationship and you might be super happy. But you might say, look, we're just really loving city life. We don't really want to settle down and have kids anytime soon. And, so you might just really want city life. But then even when you're having kids, you might want to move back to where you're from, etc. So I think it's really just, everyone's living different lives. And I think that question of, next 5 to 10 years, and sometimes you've got a real clear story. For example, I grew up in Newcastle. I could say, well, I was living in Sydney, but I really, in a relationship, when I want to have my first child, I'm going to move back close to my family. Looking at your strategy, you might be considering buying up in Newcastle versus, say, buying an apartment in Sydney. Or you might be doing some work regionally because you're doing a traineeship, but in 2 years' time, you're going to want to move back to the city and your income's going to jump up a lot. So not just family planning, but your income can change quite a lot over short periods.
Yeah, and for many first home buyers, the conversation centers around family. Maybe you're thinking about having kids. Maybe you already have kids and you want more stability. Maybe kids aren't a part of your plan at all, and that's just as important to acknowledge. So here are some great questions to start asking yourself. Do I want to start a family? If so, when? Do you already have kids and are you planning on having any more? Like you mentioned before, Chris, would living close to extended family or support networks be beneficial? And will you need a backyard, extra bedrooms, or be close to schools and parks? So, Chris, are these the sort of questions you're going through with first home buyers?
Yeah, look, I think thing to remember here, and while it seems first home buyers are always sort of couples in their 30s, etc. A lot of first home buyers can be in their 20s. They can be single. They could be a bit older, even in their 40s. It's crazy. Just the challenges of entering the market are much harder than it was, say, decades ago. And sometimes people have got kids or planning to have kids or got multiple kids. And so the first home buyer can be quite broad, but ultimately it's really just thinking through what's your sort of life plan and can you try to plan for that? Because it's really hard to do something called a stepping stone strategy. Buy something what suits you now, then you sell it in a couple of years' time and you buy what suits you then. And there's a lot of money you can burn in sort of buy costs in terms of things like stamp duty and lender's mortgage insurance and sunk costs like fixing places up and real estate agents when you sell, etc. So what you really want to do is just really understand, is security and stability going to really matter for you at some point down your journey? Often it doesn't matter too much when you're single or even when you're a couple, but it can matter a lot as soon as the little baby enters the world. And so, yeah, just thinking about that. Sometimes it's not possible. The plan of where you want to go and the house that you want to live in long term just isn't feasible right now. You haven't got the income, you haven't got the savings, and it's just a challenge. And maybe you can't make a compromise into an area that you might want to live in long term because you really want to live close to family. So maybe it's a case of saying, well, can we just get something that's going to suit us now and suit us for a short runway? And so often people say this, but every client of ours is doing different things. We don't see many clients ever buying in the same suburb and a similar type of property. They're all buying in different locations, different types of properties that are all on their own journey. I think often people forget about that in the property market.
And look, you're absolutely right there, Chris. Every client we work with is on a different journey. And that's what's so important to be also thinking about your lifestyle, because where and how you live day to day plays a huge role in whether a property truly feels right for you. So start asking yourself these questions. Do I want to live in the city or quieter suburbs? Would I consider living regional or interstate? Am I happy living in the area I am for the next 5+ years, or am I planning a move? How far am I willing to commute for work? And do I want close access to public transport, cafes, or am I after a specific community feel? And also think about, what do you like to do outside of work or on your weekends? For me, I love to be down at the beach or out hiking in nature. So being able to access spaces like this is so important for me. And that's what I would look for when I'm looking at a property. What do you think, Chris? Have we missed anything here?
Look, I think they're just really great conversations. And I think it's important that you're doing this with your partner. I think it always has to be a two-person show here. You can't just be running it and then hope your partner just comes along. And because, a home in particular or any really major investment decision affects both of you. And so it's really having these questions to go, okay, you're living in the city now and you love the cafe culture. You're going to love that maybe when a child arrives, or maybe your job's right now in the city, but ultimately, you might be working from home a lot more and maybe remote work. And so just thinking through how your lifestyle is going to change, what sort of you love to do outside of work and how that might shift over the coming years. I mean, I absolutely love my gardening like you do, Jack, here in the backyard. Did I love it 5-10 years ago? I love being out in nature now. I find that such a huge part of my life, but it wasn't, say, maybe 15 years ago. And so everyone's needs are shifting. It's just sort of planning for the life you want to live, also not just the life you're living today. And what's going to really motivate you and inspire you. I mean, you can get a property anywhere, and it's not about buying a property that's always going to grow the most, because a lot of good assets can grow at similar rates in different locations. And so if you can get the best of both worlds, something that suits you and your life and your plan, but also is a great asset versus maybe just getting an equally great asset, but maybe not in an area that really you love living in and really suits the life you want to live. So yeah, these are all good questions. And often people don't expect them from, let's say us, like mortgage brokers. They just expect brokers to say, what do you want to buy? How much do you want to borrow? I can get you a really good rate and get you a good loan structure even. And so this is great brokers. And I think great people in your life helping you with your property decisions should be challenging your thinking just to make sure that you're making a decision that really suits you and your family.
Yeah, for sure, Chris. A lot of people don't expect brokers to ask these kind of questions, but they really should be because there are risks if you're buying without that long-term view in mind. And when people don't get clear on their goals and visions, that's when mistakes are made. And you might sell your property sooner than what you expected, feel boxed in by a location that doesn't really serve you and your family. You might face high selling costs or market downturns if you need to sell, especially if you're doing so in the short term. So this short-term mindset can be expensive. To buy a new property, you're paying stamp duties, agent fees, legal costs, moving costs. It all adds up so quickly. And if you're forced to sell in a lower market, you could lose money. So now, Chris, do you agree that planning to hold your property for the longer term gives that property the best chance of increasing in value?
Yeah, there's two parts to this probably, Jack. The runway, I like to use that analogy, right? If you buy something that really just suits you now, you're a couple in the city and, get an apartment and you have a kid and you've got to move out and you potentially just have to then go and sell it. And if the market moves a lot in that short runway, then yeah, it can work, but often it doesn't. And, then you potentially have to either rent it out and then you have to go rent something that suits you now. But if you just thought it through and maybe got an extra bedroom or maybe bought a little bit further out, and maybe your runway's gone from 2 or 3 years or 1 year to 5 or 7 years. And so really try to get a property with a longer runway. It gives you the best chance of actually, a property growing on you. That's just the market. The second part of it is really trying to get a good asset. I think that's the most important thing here as well, is that oftentimes when people are buying things just to get into the market and not taking a bit of a longer term view, they're not thinking strategically around what's really going to, make this property a good property. And just remember that all properties grow at different rates. All properties aren't guaranteed to grow. We've seen lots of clients that have rushed their first property and has really gone, quite poorly for them. People who have bought off the plan apartments and, when they finally settle, it's worth less than what they paid or it hasn't gone up in 4 or 5 years. There's a pain and gain report that CoreLogic do. We can put a link to that also in the show notes. And it could really show you that not everyone's winning on property. Yeah, a lot of people who have bought houses have, the chance of winning's been very high, but a lot of people in the apartment market in particular haven't made any gains. They've actually sold at a loss. And these are the stories that often aren't talked about in the property market. Everyone thinks that everyone's winning, but it's not the truth. And a lot of first home buyers are the ones that it matters the most too. If it doesn't work, that first property and your savings haven't gone up and then you've got to minus off all these costs, it's really hard to get yourself ahead again because the market's moving, prices are going up for other assets, and you get really left behind, not because you didn't do something, but because maybe you didn't think through what you actually did do. So that's some of the major things we've seen over the years.
Look, Chris, you've raised some really great points there, and I know you mentioned asset quality. Now, we're going to deep dive into everything asset quality in an upcoming episode, so stay tuned for that. And now back to the goals and visions conversation. So if you're skipping this step and you don't do this groundwork, it's easy to get pulled in other directions. We've all heard rent money's dead money. You have to buy now. You always make money on property. And this is where people make emotional and reactive decisions. And that's why every decision should be linking back to your goals, your visions, not just what the market's doing or what other people are saying. So Chris, before we start wrapping up this episode, is there anything else you'd like to add?
When you said rent is dead money, that's definitely a common myth and a motivator, is that people want to get out of the rental market and they think that just getting a property is better than renting. That's a big mistake first home buyers make. So I think over the next, every single episode, there's going to be these little nuggets that we can sort of explain. And I'm really excited to go through this process with you. And a lot of people think, my vision of where I want to get to and where I am today, it's just too big of a leap. And that's fine. But I think it's firstly important just to start to map it out and just consider, because yes, you may not be able to get a 4-bedroom house and, the double garage in the area that maybe you want to live, but maybe you could get a little garden apartment, maybe that could give you a 5-7 years, and maybe that'll be enough to get the kids through, primary school, and maybe you'd look to upgrade longer to term down the line. So it's just starting to build an image of, where you want to head long-term, because there's many different ways that you can cut it, and we can help you on that process.
Amazing, Chris. And yes, we can definitely help you on that process of getting clear on your goals and visions and aligning the property to that. So here are your key takeaways from today. Your first step isn't finance, it's getting clear on your goals and vision. Start with the life you want to build and then align your property strategy to that. Avoid any decisions made under urgency or pressure and get clear on your goals and visions, because this will help you feel more confident every step of the way. So we've put all the key information from today's episode into the goals and visions download that you can find in the show notes. So that's it for episode 1. So to keep the conversation going, you can follow us on socials, join our Facebook group First Home Unlocked to ask questions and join other first home buyers who are on the same journey, or you can book a get to know you chat for personalized support. So on next week's episode, we'll be talking about when is the right time to talk to a broker, and we'll break down how early conversations can unlock more options for you. Look forward to bringing that to you all next week. Talk to you then, Chris.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd really appreciate if you could do us a huge favour. Share this episode with any first home buyers that you know so we can help more people like you feel clear, calm and confident when purchasing their first property. You can join our Facebook group, First Home Unlocked, to continue the conversation with other first home buyers. Or if you're ready to unlock your first home, you can book a get to know you chat by using the link in the show notes or by going to firsthomeunlocked.com.au. Before we go, just a reminder that everything we share on this podcast is general in nature and not tailored to your personal situation. We always recommend seeking advice from a qualified and experienced professional when making financial decisions.